I am currently sitting on my balcony watching the world vibrate with anxiety over things they cannot control while I enjoy a cold brew that costs more than some people make in an hour. Most of you are obsessed with the noise of the market and the theater of politics because you have been conditioned to believe that movement equals progress, but the reality is much colder. I spent my morning digging into the reports of a certain $1 trillion military scam, and it reminded me why most retail investors are destined to stay poor. While you are arguing over red and blue, the system is quietly extracting trillions of your future labor to fund vanity projects and weapon stockpiles that do not even exist anymore. Complexity is a status signal for people who want to feel smart but stay poor. And honestly, most of you are working far too hard for money that does not even respect you. If you cannot explain your strategy to a 12-year-old, you are just gambling, and right now most of you are gambling with your life and losing every single hand. I was recently reading an article titled, "Only about half of IRA savers contribute the maximum allowed," and that got me thinking about the layers of mediocrity people accept. Based on the most recent IRS data, about 54% of people who contribute to a traditional IRA are actually maxing it out, which means half of the population is just hovering in the middle. The max limits for 2026 are sitting there like a target, but most people treat them like a suggestion or a source of deep anxiety because they lack a basic system. Under the age of 50, about 54% hit the limit, and over the age of 50, about 53% hit the limit, which proves that the struggle is remarkably consistent across generations. Even the averages make sense in a depressing sort of way when you look at those in their early 20s who contribute on average around $2,000 a year. For those in their later 40s, the average tends to be closer to $4,300 for the year, which is still nowhere near the actual potential of these accounts. Once you hit catch-up age for those ages 50 to 54, they are contributing an average of $4,900 a year, which is essentially trying to put out a forest fire with a water pistol. For those ages 65 to 71, they are contributing on average a little bit over $5,000. And honestly, I think all of these numbers are fairly as expected. But it does raise a bigger question of why more people are not using an IRA to its full potential. And the answer is that most people are tired and uninspired. It is so easy to look at this data and then just shake our heads and say people just are not saving enough, but there is a lot more to the story than what it seems. This really is not about IRAs or if you are maxing out your IRA specifically, because those are just buckets, and the buckets do not matter if the faucet is dry. It is about how you are saving and what type of system you are taking advantage of, because effort is a lie and systems are the only thing that move the needle. When you zoom out, there are really 4 different tiers of savers, and most of you are stuck in the first 2 tiers, like NPCs in a very boring video game. Tier number 1, quite frankly, is the no-system individual who has no retirement accounts and no consistent habit of saving or thinking. If they have cash, it is likely sitting idle in a checking account, losing value to inflation every single second while they worry about things they cannot change. For many people, this is really where the biggest risk lives, and it is only partially a knowledge problem because it is primarily a behavior problem. Humans are naturally lazy, and if you do not automate your greatness, you will default to your lowest common denominator, which is usually poverty. Tier number 2 gives us the default saver, which is basically the 401k only crowd who are contributing to a plan because someone else told them to. Some might only be contributing enough to capture the employer match, which is fine if you like being average and ending up with an average life. What really unlocks this level is automation and access, but there is limited flexibility because these accounts come with a lot of rules and bureaucratic nonsense. Tier number 3 is the intentional saver who has an employer-sponsored retirement plan and an IRA because they realize they need more than one bucket. They are opening and funding another investment account by their own accord and thinking about taxes and strategy and long-term planning instead of just Netflix. Then finally, we have Tier 4, which is the system builder level, where you have a 401k and an IRA and a taxable brokerage account. This is where true financial control lives and where we come up with a rock-solid financial plan that does not require you to check the news every 5 minutes. These tiers are not solely tied to income, because I have seen high-income earners who are stuck at Tier 2 because they are financially illiterate and spend everything. I have also seen modest income earners work their way all the way up to Tier 4 through sheer discipline and the refusal to buy things they do not need. When you look behind the scenes, if someone does not have access to a retirement plan through work, only about 20 to 30% of them end up with any savings at all. This means the vast majority never even get started because there is no structure and no default and no one holding their hand when savings requires you to open an account on your own and decide how much to contribute. Most people just do not do it because thinking is hard. They stay in Tier 1, and this is where the biggest financial risk lives, because if you do not ever get started, compounding never gets a chance to work for you. Now let us move to Tier 2, where things start to change because of access and the fact that most people are just followers of the easiest path right now. About 60 to 65% of us workers have access to one of these plans, but that access is not evenly distributed across the classes. If you are a lower income worker, only about 30 to 40% have access, while higher income workers have about 90% access to these structures. Once someone simply has access to one of these plans, the participation rate jumps to 80 or 90% because the system is doing the heavy lifting. That gap is massive, and it proves that we do not just have a savings problem, we have an access and a structural problem in this country. Most people stop right here at Tier 2, and that is perfectly fine if you want a life that is scripted and predictable and moderately comfortable. If you save 15% of your income for decades, you're going to be just fine because consistency and time matter far more than complexity. Now let us move up to Tier 3, the intentional saver who adds an IRA on top of their employer plan and starts to actually look at the math. Remember the stat that only about half of those who are contributing to an IRA are maxing it out, which suggests a lack of conviction or a lack of cash flow. Only about 10 to 15% of households contribute to an IRA in a given year, but about 40% actually own one, which is a strange disconnect. This is because roughly 90% of IRA assets are tied to rollovers, not new contributions from people trying to grow their wealth. The majority of money sitting in an IRA comes from 401k rollovers after job changes, not from people intentionally maxing it out every year with fresh capital. Typical IRA users are not starting from scratch, and they likely already have an employer plan because they are stacking layers of security. They use an IRA as a consolidation tool or a way to diversify their tax strategy and protect themselves from the inevitable reach of the government. Does it really matter if you are not maxing out your IRA specifically as long as you are building wealth somewhere else in the market? The honest answer is no, it does not matter because IRA contributions on their own tell you almost nothing about total savings habits or net worth. Higher income households are the ones stacking accounts and moving into Tier 4 because they realize that one stream of income is a dangerous way to live. Tier 4 is where we add the brokerage account, which is my personal favorite because it is the ultimate freedom fund and the ultimate escape hatch. You can contribute whatever you want whenever you want with no income restrictions or age restrictions or bureaucratic red tape. As long as you are using broad market index funds like VO or VTI, this can be an incredibly tax-efficient account if you just leave it alone. Only about 21% of households have a taxable brokerage account because most people never make it past the government-sponsored buckets. IRA users are more than twice as likely to be investing in a taxable account compared to the general population, which shows a clear correlation between knowledge and wealth. Once you move into account stacking, you are building a system where your 401k does the heavy lifting and your brokerage account gives you the freedom. The whole goal of account stacking is to find the best way for all of these accounts to work together so you can spend more time on your balcony. Most people do not start with a brokerage account because they go for the automatic options first, but once you have that brokerage account, you have real options. You have the option to access your money before the age of 59 and a half, and you have the option to ignore the rules of the retirement simulation. The data shows that the people who win are not the ones with the most complex strategies, but the ones with the most consistent and boring systems. Now let us shift focus to the macro side of this disaster because while you are trying to save $7,500, the government is losing trillions. Donald Trump is panicking as his $1 trillion scam has been exposed, and now the regime is threatening criminal penalties against anyone who talks about it. They say that this $1 trillion number was detailed during classified briefings, and therefore if you talk about it, you are violating some law. Well, we are not scared to talk about the math here because the truth does not require a security clearance to be obvious to anyone with eyes. The regime has been claiming that its catastrophic war against Iran only cost $25 billion, but that is just a fraction of the actual cost. That $25 billion only covers the cost of some missiles and the weaponry and the logistics of moving human capital into a region they do not belong. It does not factor in the consequential costs that are going to be imposed as a result of the geopolitical shifts occurring right now. In the Middle East, Iran now controls the Strait of Hormuz, which means the global security umbrella that the United States used to maintain is utterly destroyed and gone. Senator Mark Kelly said it is shocking how deep we have gone into the magazines, and he is talking about the Tomahawks and the interceptors that we no longer have. If we are in any other conflict right now, we really do not have the weapons that we did when this war started because we spent them on nothing. There was a military budget of $1 trillion for the fiscal year of 2025, and now they are asking for $1.5 trillion to fix their own mistakes. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is calling people names and threatening legal reviews because he knows the math does not math for the average citizen. Ryan Grim noted that a $1 trillion budget and no ammo after 40 days is a special kind of failure that should lead to immediate termination. When you look at the life of the person in charge, you see a pattern of someone who has gone bankrupt over and over again because they do not understand value. We can look at the media company that lost $406 million in a single quarter while only making $870,000 in revenue, which is a total joke. Look at the reflecting pool in Washington, where a $7 million contract was given to paint the water blue instead of fixing the actual leaks. This is the same logic they use for the entire economy, where they paint the numbers blue and tell you everything is fine while the ship is sinking. Economists like Justin Wolfers wrote that the real cost of this war will be in the trillions and trillions of dollars over the next decade. The Defense Department says $25 billion, but that only covers the missiles fired and the planes flown, and it ignores the massive human and economic cost. Geopolitical risk alone costs roughly $200 billion and leaves millions of Americans unemployed within a year due to market instability. Interest rates are not going down because of this, and that costs another $200 billion in lost economic output while you pay more for your mortgage. But the real destruction is in the bond market, where the yields are significantly higher because the country has to pay more on the debt every year. The stock market has already seen roughly $3 trillion wiped off valuations, according to some estimates, while people were distracted by tweets. Oil prices could be elevated through 2028, which acts as a hidden tax on every single person trying to drive to a job they hate. The U.S. markets are lagging behind foreign markets because we are engaging in catastrophic wars and global tariffs that stifle the flow of capital. Goldman Sachs projects that GDP growth will be significantly lower, resulting in $400 billion in lost income. For the working class, the request for a $1.5 trillion defense budget is a 40% increase, which breaks down to roughly $4,000 per American household. You are being asked to pay $4,000 so that people can play with expensive toys and pretend they are heroes while you struggle to pay rent. These people are the height of waste and fraud and abuse because they treat your tax dollars like play money for their own egos. They talk about building golden domes based on junk science because they want to sell you a dream of security while they burn your future. Defense spending is increasing while your Medicare plans are being discontinued and your premiums are going up to record levels. The system is designed to extract value from you at every stage of your life and then leave you with nothing but a flag and a handshake. Budget Director Russell Vought was asked for a war cost figure, and he said he did not even have a ballpark, which is an admission of guilt. Senator Mark Kelly called the $1.5 trillion request outrageous because when he got to the Senate 5 years ago, the budget was half that. We are spending as much as the rest of the world combined, and we are getting a system that does not even work on a basic mechanical level. The regime wants to be a keyboard warrior and threaten to unleash hell on the world while the actual munitions are depleted and the soldiers are tired. They talk about $18 trillion or $21 trillion coming in from abroad, but it is a Ponzi scheme designed to distract you from the truth. They use these massive numbers to confuse you so that you stop caring about the actual money being stolen from your bank account every day. They talk about selling gold cards for $5 trillion to people who do not exist while the actual economy is grinding to a halt. It is all part of the same programming to make you think that trillions are just normal numbers and that you should not worry about the debt. Pete Hegseth talks about stopping diversity and focusing on merit while he asks for $1.5 trillion to fund a military that is failing. It is absolutely crazy stuff, and it is being exposed by everyone from economists to senators who still have a shred of integrity. Now let us look at what real investors are doing while the circus continues to perform for the masses. Michael Burry just updated his portfolio, and he is making 5 very specific bets right now that show he is looking for value in the wreckage. Burry is a man who exists in a state of perpetual calculation, while you exist in a state of perpetual emotion and reaction. He is making bets on beaten-down software leaders because he understands that price is what you pay and value is what you actually get. Microsoft is a new position in a beaten-down megacap software leader, which feels counterintuitive given the current AI bubble. PayPal is another new position where he is dedicating a piece of his portfolio to the payment sector, which has gotten absolutely crushed by sentiment. Adobe is a position where he has increased his existing holdings despite the stock falling significantly in the last few months. MSCI is another one where he has increased his stake, and Salesforce is currently a target for a future addition to his concentrated portfolio. Burry is clearly betting that the market has punished these businesses far more than the actual fundamentals deserve, which is a classic value play. He became a legend for one specific call in the mid-2000s when virtually every bank and analyst was saying that housing was safe. He studied the actual data and concluded it was going to collapse, and then he heavily bet against the entire system. In 2008, when the housing market did crash and nearly took the entire world down, Burry made over $700 million for his investors. I am not telling you to copy him, because I will never tell you to copy anybody or listen to anyone without doing your own math. Do not buy a stock just because he is buying it, or because Warren Buffett is buying it, or because some guy on a balcony told you to. What I want you to understand is the process they use to get there, which involves looking at actual numbers before you spend a dollar. That is what changes your approach to investing from pure speculation to actual wealth building and long-term freedom. Burry was also buying GameStop far before the hype happened because he saw the deep value in the balance sheet before the internet found it. If you cannot explain your investment thesis in 2 sentences, then you do not have an investment thesis, you just have a hope and a prayer. Microsoft is a $3 trillion business with revenue sitting at $318 billion, and they are currently spending $80 billion on AI. Their growth rate over the last 10 years is actually getting faster, which is statistically improbable for a company of this size and scale. Their profit margin was 34% a decade ago, and now it is nearly 40%, which shows incredible operational efficiency. It is selling for 9.5 times sales, which helps us compare it to other software businesses that might be selling for much higher multiples. If Microsoft doubles its profit every year for the next 20 years, you would be a fool not to pay the current price, but that is a big if. Analysts expect earnings per share to almost double in the next 4 years, which is an incredible feat for an aircraft carrier. This large and heavy. I remember a tech CEO told me 14 years ago that I was stupid for buying Microsoft because it was a dead company, and I just laughed. The thought of people being worried about Microsoft was unheard of not very long ago, but that is exactly what has to happen for prices to drop. PayPal is down over 80% from its all-time highs because the pandemic inflated the valuation and then the growth normalized and people panicked. It is a $43.7 billion business that generated $5.5 billion in cash flow last year, which is a lot of cash for a dying company. The profit margins and gross margins are getting better, and the PE to growth ratio is under 1, which means the growth is cheap. Venmo transactions are up 14% year over year, and the user base is massive, despite the competition from other fintech players. They bought back 21% of their shares in the last 5 years because they know the stock is cheap, and they are the biggest believers. Adobe is another company people think is being replaced by AI, but it is still growing well and generating massive amounts of free cash flow. It is down from an all-time high of 700 to about 255, which is a massive discount if you believe in the long-term story of creative software. MSCI is currently selling for 30 times earnings, and while analysts expect big growth, I am a bit more skeptical on the current price. Salesforce has been beaten up because people think AI will ruin their business model, but their enterprise moat is deeper than most people realize. Burry is betting that the fear has gone much further than the actual fundamentals deserve, and he is usually right about the timing of fear. Great investing is rarely comfortable because discomfort creates the mispricings that allow us to outperform the market and build real wealth. You must know what you own and what it is worth, and you must never buy based on the hype of the day or the noise of the news. If you want to see stocks with actual multi-bagger upside, then you need to stop acting like an amateur and start acting like a professional system builder. The results are fascinating when you actually run the math instead of listening to talking heads on television or reading emotional posts on social media. Money is just a tool to buy back your time, so do not spend all your time worrying about your money while the system tries to steal it. I am going to go finish my espresso now and enjoy the silence while the world continues to vibrate with pointless anxiety and fake news. Every second you spend worrying about their threats or their scams is a second you are not using to secure your own future and your own peace. The world is a messy and corrupt place, but your bank account does not have to be if you just follow the boring and repetitive discipline of wealth. Stop being a default saver and start being a system builder, because the middle class is a trap designed to keep you working until you are dead. The only way out is through the cold and calculated application of logic and the refusal to be distracted by the latest shiny object or political theater. I will see you when I feel like making another video, and until then, try to find a balcony and a cold brew and some peace of mind. The data never lies even when the people in charge do, so keep your eyes on the numbers and your feet on the ground. Peace is profitable, but war is only profitable for the people who are not fighting it, so do not let them recruit you into their economic battles. Your freedom is the only metric that matters at the end of the day, so do not trade it for a feeling of being right or a sense of belonging to a group. I am 27 years old and I have $150,000 because I stopped listening to the noise and started listening to the math, and it is the best decision I ever made. The sun is coming out now, and it is time for me to stop thinking about these scammers and start enjoying the day that my system has bought for me. Take a breath and look at your own numbers and decide today if you are going to be a victim of the system or the master of your own destiny. Wealth is not about having a lot of money. It is about having a lot of options and the ability to say no to things that do not serve you. Say no to the debt, and say no to the drama, and say no to the complexity that is designed to keep you confused and poor. The future belongs to the people who can stay calm while everyone else is panicking. So stay calm and keep your system running in the background. I am done talking for now, because talking is effort, and I prefer the silence of a successful strategy over the noise of a failing one. I will see you in the next one if I feel like it, and I hope you found something here to help you escape the simulation of the middle class. The brutal truth is that no one is coming to save you, so you have to save yourself, and your system is the only thing that can do it. Good luck with your buckets and your numbers and your peace of mind, because you are going to need all of them in the years to come. The simulation is breaking, but the math remains the same, so stay grounded in the reality of the balance sheet and the power of time. I am going to close my eyes now and forget about the $1 trillion scam and the $80 billion AI infrastructure because my coffee is empty. It is time to move on to the next phase of the day, which involves doing absolutely nothing while my money works for me in the background. That is the ultimate goal, and that is the only truth that matters in this whole messy world of finance and politics. I hope you get there soon, and I hope you enjoy the view from your own balcony when you finally arrive at the top of the ladder. The ladder is steep, but the view is worth it, and the boredom of the climb is the price you pay for the excitement of the destination. Keep climbing or keep sitting, but whatever you do, do not let them convince you that you are losing when you are actually winning by staying out of their game. The game is rigged, but you do not have to play it if you have your own board and your own pieces and your own rules. That is the final lesson for today, and I hope it sticks with you longer than the headlines of the morning news cycle. Goodbye for now, and good luck with everything you are building in the shadows while the world watches the light show.